What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the Supabase Marketplace app. In this video, we are going to be building out the user profile and our user data model services and setting up users in our backend as well. Now, if you guys want access to the source code for this project, the link for that is in the description. You can access all of the YouTube projects we do here at AppStuff, past, present, and future for a one-time fee of $59. We're also having a massive Black Friday sale right now at the time of filming this video where you get 30% off everything. So once again, make sure you check that out. Link is in the description. And let's go ahead and hop into Xcode and get started. So in Xcode, guys, we're going to go to our core folder and we're going to make another folder here for our users. And within our user folder, we're going to create three subfolders, one for our manager, one for our service, and one for our model. And we're going to start this video out by building our user model. So let's go ahead and create a Swift file, and we will call this user.swift. And I am going to go ahead and paste the code in here that we need. And we'll cover what exactly this user model is going to contain. So here's our user struct. It's going to be identifiable and codable. We are going to have an ID, email, username, when the user was created, an optional profile image URL, so users can have the option to upload a profile image, the total sales for that user, the number of items they have sold, and the number of items they had purchased. We also have this coding keys enumeration to help us decode our incoming data from the back end and map it into our user object. So we are going to be utilizing a snake case system for our database keys, but a camel casing system for our user object property names. So this is very common when working with databases. Oftentimes things are snake cased, and we are going to go over exactly how that works when we set up our user object in our backend or our user table. So that's our user object. And we are also going to create a mock here. So I'm going to create an extension on user and create a mock user here that we can use in our previews and stuff like that. So now, guys, let's go and next up create our user service. And we're going to make this a Swift file. And we're going to create a file for our user manager as well. So this is going to be called user service. So this is going to be responsible for fetching our user data and uploading our user data to our Supabase tables. And in our manager folder, we're going to create a user manager. And we are going to use dependency injection to inject our service into our user manager. So let's go ahead and build out this user service really quickly. So we're going to say struct user service. And we are going to initialize our client the same way we did as our auth manager. We need to just import Supabase here. And you guys can literally just copy and paste this from your auth service. Initializing the client is the same everywhere. And we're going to have a function to fetch our current user. I'm just going to copy and paste this in here. And this is what it's going to look like. It's going to be an asynchronous throwing function that returns a user object. We are going to get our Supabase user from our auth session from the Supabase API. And then we're going to go to our user table, which we will create in a little bit, select that, or do a select, and then say, hey, wherever the user ID is equal to this user ID, go and get me that particular user. That's how we're going to fetch the current logged in user. We only need a single object. We're going to execute that call and then return the value. So this is how we fetch our current user from Supabase. So next up, we're going to create our user manager. So we're going to say this is an observable final class user manager. We're going to say private let service, which is our user service. And we are going to say init and use the autocomplete there. And then we're just going to implement our fetch current user function, guys. But first, we are going to implement some properties up at the top here. We're going to have a current user variable and an isLoading property. And then here's what our fetch current user function is going to look like. We're simply going to call the function on our user service. Let me just call this service here. And we are going to populate this current user property here. And we are going to set isLoading to true when this starts out. And whenever the function completes, we are going to defer to isLoading being false. So that's pretty much it for our user manager. Next up, we're going to implement this the same way we did with our auth manager at the root app level. So I'm going to go to my Supabase Marketplace app file, and I'm going to create a user manager here, like so. And let's give our service a default value so we don't have to pass it in. So command click into your user manager and just go ahead and say equals user service. Let's go back and let's set that up on the environment here. Perfect. Next up, guys, we're going to go back to our root app level, or sorry, our root view, which is our content view. And what we're going to do here is once we know that we have an authenticated user, we are then going to fetch the current user from our Supabase database. So I'm going to create a task with an ID attached to it, which is going to be authmanager.authState. And we're going to make sure that our authmanager.authState is equal to .authenticated, else return. So this is going to run this task every time the auth state changes. That's the beauty of attaching this ID to our task here. And then once we do that, we're just going to say await user manager. Oop, we need to implement that as an environment property. Private var user manager. And then we're going to say, just go ahead and say user manager.fetch current user. So basically the flow is, once we authenticate, then we want to fetch all of this user data and populate that onto our user profile. Items sold, sales, email, profile image URL, and all that good stuff. So that's what that's going to look like. And next up, what I want us to do is go ahead and set our user up in our Supabase database. We need to set up a user table and set up some row level security so that we can successfully upload users and fetch user data. So you're going to want to hop into your Supabase dashboard, and we are going to go to this left panel and we're going to go to our database. And then we're going to go to, we don't have any tables created yet, so we can say create new table. And we're going to call this users. And guys, we have an ID here set up already and a created at field. So this comes back to what I was saying with the snake casing. Oftentimes, keys in databases will be stored with snake casing. So we're going to go over how to successfully decode, or just walk through that one more time so that makes sense. But we're going to snake case all of our keys, meaning every word is separated by an underscore. So really quickly, let's go ahead and change this ID to a text property. We're not going to be using integers. Make sure the primary key is checked here. This is our unique identifier for each user. And we're going to add a couple columns here. So we need a column for our email, which is going to be a text property. We need another column for our username, which is also text. We need another column for our profile underscore image underscore URL, also text. Add a column for our total sales. So that's how we're going to get the total sales for each user. And this is going to be in a, let's see, I believe we want this to be a float. Yes, so we'll make that a float 8. And then we're going to have in items sold, we could say items sold count. And this is just going to be int, we could make it like int 4, a 4-bit integer. And then we will say items underscore purchased count. And that will be an int 4 as well. And that should be it for our user object, guys. Let's go ahead and save that. So once again, I just want to illustrate the difference between our auth user and the custom user object that we're going to be using for our application. The auth user is going to be the same across every application. That manages your authentication, right? But if we go back to our authentication tab, we have a bunch of preset fields here that we cannot edit for a user object, right? So this just manages our authentication. We need a custom user object that has all of our user metadata relative to our app. In this case, everything we just populated in that user table. So next up, guys, let's go back to our table editor, and we should see this users table here. We need to add some row level securities. So basically, we need to specify what operations can be performed on this table. So we are going to say view policies, and we're going to create a policy here. And we are just going to go ahead and just hit select. And then on this menu that we have here, just go ahead and say all. So this is just going to allow us to perform all of these CRUD operations, select, insert, update, and delete on our users. And we're just going to say save policy there. You guys could get more granular with that if you wish. It depends on the needs of your application. You can add custom logic there for read, write, update, and deletion capabilities to your user object, but we're going to keep it simple here. But Supabase does require that you add row-level security to each table, which is an added security step that is something like Firebase doesn't have a simple interface to set up with. Each Firebase table has rules, but I like the interface with Supabase here much better. So we're all set up and good to go in our backend with our user table. Now I want us to go over how to actually upload user data. So let's hop back into Xcode, guys. And basically when we sign a user up through our registration flow, we want to upload all of this user data to our Supabase table. So we are going to go back to our features folder, authentication, and we are going to go to our manager folder. And actually, sorry, we're going to go to our service folder because that is responsible for communicating with our Supabase service or table. And we're going to add this function here. Upload user data with UID, email, and username. We could add this to our user service and then inject a user service into our Supabase auth service, but this is the only component or only time we're ever going to have to upload user data. So I think this is okay to stick into the auth service. So here we simply create our user with this information, ID, email, username, created at, and all of these items will be 0 because a new user hasn't sold or purchased anything. And if we go back to our helpful little comment that we added here, we are just going to go and say await, or try await rather, upload user data with our user ID, email, and our username. So now when we sign a user up, it will upload that information to our Supabase table. So let's go ahead and see if we can test this out. So we're actually going to need to build out some functionality, a profile screen here so we can sign out of our application. If we were to run it right now, it's going to just launch to our main interface, and that is not going to give us the ability to actually sign out of our account. We could trigger it manually from the code, but what we're going to do is get started with our profile screen here as well and come back to this in a little bit. So in our features folder, guys, we're going to go and make a feature for our profile. So you can see it opened up to the main interface there and we can't sign out at all. So we're going to say we want a profile, and here we're going to create a folder for our view. And we're just going to go and create a SwiftUI view. And this is going to be called user profile view. Perfect. So let's start building out our UI. In order to sign out, we're going to need our environment auth manager property. So let's start with that. Auth manager.self private var auth manager. And let's literally just add a button here to sign out. Sign out, and we'll say auth manager.sign out. This might have to be wrapped up in a task. Yeah. So we'll go here and we'll say task await auth manager.sign out. And that should automatically trigger taking us back to our login interface, and we'll be able to test out. We need to actually launch this to our user profile view. So let's go back to our content view. So the root folder here, and replace text main interface with our user profile view. And we already have our auth manager on the environment, so we don't need to add that there. We're good to go. And this is just going to allow us to sign out, and then we can test our new sign up process. Boom. We hit that, and that works beautifully. And we'll go to sign up, and let's create an actual user here. So I'm going to make an account for my guy Kevin here, and his username is going to be Kevin Johnson. And we'll just create a simple password and hit sign up. Okay, so it looks like we got an error. So if we look at our console, we see sign up error. Postgres error detail is that could not find the items purchased. Oh, okay, I know what happened. We need to go back to our user object, and Because our coding keys don't match up with what we have in our database, the upload failed. Go to items sold and replace that with items sold counts and items purchased count. And if we go back to Supabase, let's just make sure all this stuff matches up. We have total sales, items sold count, items purchased count, and that looks good. So we should be able to run the application again and retest this. Really quickly, guys, you can go back to the Supabase dashboard, go to your authentication tab. I deleted those 2 test users. You can do the same so that we can more easily just create test users and not have any garbage in our backend. So let's go to sign up and let's just create a new user. We'll say John this time, john@gmail.com, John Smith. And we will say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for our password and confirm it and hit sign up. And perfect, guys. Check that out. It rerouted us to our main application interface. And if we refresh our users table, so go to the users table in your Supabase dashboard, we actually see John and Kevin. Let me just go ahead and delete Kevin. And let's go to our authentication table. Okay, there's John. Okay. Sorry, go to your database and go to users, and we should just see, yes, perfect. Okay, so we see John, we see his ID when he was created, his username, no profile image URL, all of his other metadata regarding purchases and sales. So that's perfect. We have successfully uploaded a user to our Supabase users table. So for the remainder of this video, guys, we are going to build out the profile UI. So I'll just pull that up here really quickly. We have this beautiful profile UI that displays information about our user, their purchases and sales, and gives them the ability to sign out as well. Before we do that, let's just make sure we're successfully fetching our current user. So go back to Xcode and let's go into our user service. So let's see, user service. And in this fetch current user function, or you know what, let's go to our user manager. So we'll go to the user manager. Let's go ahead and just say print. And I like to add a debug prefix to filter in the console, current user. And we'll just see if we can print out our current user. And let's run the application and see if we are successfully fetching that. Let's pull the console up here. I'm going to use my debug filter because the console contains a ton of garbage. And let's see. So perfect, man. Look at that. We see that we are successfully fetching and decoding our user object. So we have this. We just need to now build a UI to display that information. So let's get started with that. So we are going to hop over to our user profile view, and we are going to just cut this button out. We're going to use it later. So hit Command X on that. We're going to wrap this in a navigation stack, and we're going to put this inside of a list. And let's go ahead and create a section and title it account and just paste that button in there. And we'll give this a role of .destructive. So that turns the text red, and that's going to be our sign out functionality. So next up, guys, let's create another section. And this is going to be for that profile header. So we want this header displaying our user's information. But on this list, first off, let's go ahead and give this a navigation title of profile. And let's go ahead and get our preview up and running and start building this out. So we are going to have an H stack here, and we're going to have an image with a system name of person.circle.fill. We're going to make it resizable. We're going to give it a frame of width and height of, let's do like 72 by 72, a nice big picture. And we'll give it a foreground style of .secondary. So let's see what that looks like. And okay, it looks like we need to add our environment of our auth manager to our preview so that this doesn't crash. So let's say .environment, auth manager, boom. And perfect, that looks great. Next up, let's go ahead and add a VStack here. And this is going to be our current user's username. So we'll say text, and we could just say text, email, .foreground style, .secondary. And we'll give this a font of .subheadline. And we'll make the alignment .leading here. And let's see, how do we get our actual user data populated here? So we're going to just use the user manager that we have that exists on our environment. So we're going to say environment user manager.self private var user manager. So this shows you the convenience of using environment objects, guys. We don't have to inject a user object in here or anything. We just access our user as part of this user manager, which exists on our environment. So it's really helpful and convenient to have that as an environment-wide app property. So on this section here, we can just go ahead and cut this whole thing, this H stack, and we could say if let current user, actually, let's add that at the very top. We'll say, man, I keep getting that warning. If, my goodness, if let current user equals our user manager dot current user, and we'll just place all of this stuff in there. So I'm going to go here and just paste that all in there. So now we have access to the current user everywhere. So here we'll say current user dot email, or username rather. And here we will say current user. Man, we got to add the user manager as an environment property down here. Sorry about those constant crashes, guys. It's Xcode's fault, not mine. And here we will say current user dot email. So let's go ahead and run this really quickly and just see what that looks like in our application. We should fetch the current user there. And perfect, absolutely perfect. We see our currently logged in user's username and email, and we have the ability to sign out here as well. So that's going to be it for the user profile for now, guys. We'll come back to this and build the rest of it out with all of these purchase stats and stuff like that. The main focus of this video was building out this user manager and uploading that user data to Supabase and fetching that user data from Supabase to display it in our application. And once again, if you guys want access to the source code for this project, the link for that is in the description. For a one-time fee of just $59, you get access to all of our YouTube projects, past, present, and future. And don't forget to check us out at appstuff.io. We currently have our biggest sale of the year for Black Friday, and we have a bunch of absolutely incredible courses on things like interview prep, fundamentals, where we just launched a new AI and machine learning course. And we also have pro app clones with like Instagram, Threads, Airbnb, and Tinder, where we build complete iOS apps from scratch using SwiftUI and Firebase. And our flagship products are our Pro Plus app clones, guys. Now, these are production-ready app clones that can handle millions of users at scale. And it's not just about building an Instagram clone or a Messenger clone. It's about learning how iOS apps are built at the highest levels. So whether you're trying to build and launch your own app or startup, or you're trying to level up your career and get to that senior or architect level, these Pro Plus courses are where you want to be. And if you become a member here with us, you guys can access literally all of that content for just $49 a month or $299 a year. It's thousands of dollars worth of content available to you for a low monthly or low yearly cost. And right now, everything is 30% off up until Cyber Monday of 2025. So make sure you check us out there, guys. We'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching this one. Peace out.